363 days later, NASCAR Thunder 2004 would hit store shelves. Many of the features introduced in the previous two games would transition over to 2004. The career and season modes, a fresh batch of lightning challenges and Thunder license tests, along with some updated and returning Thunder plates. The career mode was largely the same, which isn't a bad thing at all, as 2003's career mode was insanely in-depth, and all that depth carried over, but now you have more stuff to spend your hard-earned prize money on. In addition to signing members of your team and managing your cars and parts, adding onto your headquarters was the name of the game here. Building new additions to your shop, in the form of chassis, engine, and body fab shops, would allow you to research new technology, essentially replacing R&D from the previous game and adding a little more to it. For instance, adding a chassis shop would give your future and overhaul chassis better tire grip, and would allow you to house 2 more chassis in your inventory, or the shock dyno allowing you to build track-specific chassis. Some of these shop additions went hand in hand, meaning you had to build one before you had access to another, such as needing an engine dyno before being able to research engine bore. I do think that some of the additions are kind of funny in how rudimentary they are, like what Cup Series team wouldn't have an engine hoist? Also, a tire mounting machine and a wheel balancer are both purchasable, but Goodyear basically handles all the tire and wheel needs for every team, even back then if I remember correctly. Obviously it wasn't a perfect system, but adding more to the career mode was a welcome addition. One new game mode was added in the form of Speed Zone, a new series of mini-games designed to test your skills, giving you scores to beat in 4 categories: passing, drafting, time trial, and blocking. Each category had 3 levels to complete, and completing every level would unlock a Thunder plate, allowing you to use the special cars used in each challenge. This mode is honestly a bit of a snoozer, and time and resources here could have been better spent somewhere else. A new feature that I can't really talk about is the ability to race online for the first time in the series. I never had an online capable PS2 though, but this is a feature I never played. I'm sure with 2003 internet speeds it was a lot of fun. That's all cool and everything, but the biggest change to the game from previous years is the all-new Grudges and Alliances system, which dramatically changed the moment-to-moment gameplay out on track. Rivalries are an ever-constant companion of any sport, but in auto racing, rivalries are a bit more intense. Every driver who's ever sat behind the wheel of a race car, whether it be NASCAR, Formula 1, IndyCar, or local dirt trackers, they all remember someone who's wronged them on track in the past, and will have no second thoughts about paying them back in kind. That's what's different about auto racing. It's a self-policing sport. If you wreck someone or race them in a way they don't like to be raced, then a receipt will come at some point, using a ridiculously expensive motor vehicle as their means. Whether it was Earnhardt versus Bodine, Hamilton versus Verstappen, Power versus, everyone, Force versus Pedregon, Ford versus Ferrari, or Toyota versus Porsche, yes, this is a real thing, rivalries are a staple of motorsports. That was missing in NASCAR games up to this point. Funny considering this is a sport that got famous partially thanks to a fight between 2 guys who wrecked each other at the end of a race. In previous games, you could knock other drivers out of the way as much as you please with no consequences, but that changed with NASCAR Thunder 2004. This introduced the new share draft feature. When you're behind another car, you can share your draft with them, resulting in both cars going faster. Staying locked behind the driver will gradually build up an alliance with them on a scale from 1 to 100. Drivers that you're friendly with will give you more room on track when you attempt to pass, and won't challenge you too hard from behind. On the other hand, if you bump someone, push them up against the wall, or door them into another car, that driver's respect for you goes down. If the respect goes into the negative, that driver becomes your rival. The scale is flipped this time, ranging from -1 to -100. If the rivalry is on the lower end of the scale, then they won't hassle you too much. But as that scale increases, your rivals will become more aggressive, to the point they will absolutely door you at the earliest opportunity, or punt you out of the way going into the next corner. If you're just playing a single race, this doesn't add much, but the feature becomes more game-changing in both career and season modes, as Grudges and Alliances carry over from race to race. Like I said, race car drivers have long memories. If you wreck someone in a race, they will remember it the next time you're around each other, even if it's several races later. Grudges and Alliances do gradually cool off though if you don't interact with those drivers on track. Share drafting with a rival is the quickest way to squash the heat between you, but simply avoiding them on track for a few races will get the job done as well. I think this is a really cool attempt at replicating the rivalries we see play out on track week to week, but it's a far from perfect system. Grudges and Alliances has 2 main flaws: how you build grudges and how the AI drivers react to you. The AI cannot tell the difference between hitting someone and being hit. If you're minding your own business and an AI driver makes a wild move and touches your car, they lose respect for you even though you didn't initiate contact. Same thing applies to when a driver is wrecking. If you get caught up in someone else's mess, every car you touch will have it out for you at the next race. Rival drivers will also do anything to pay you back, even if it's during an inopportune time. You and a rival could be coming to the checkered flag for the win, but if you get alongside them, the AI will absolutely sacrifice the win just to take you out. This is especially troublesome in career mode, as you're pedaling your shitbox of a car around in the early years. A rival can absolutely destroy your car, putting big time financial stress on your team. But in a way, I guess that's realistic. Grudges and alliances is a cool idea, just not executed that well. The presentation is still top notch, with Joe Moore and Barney Hall returning to host their pre-race show. There's a couple of minor things added to the game as well that helps it stand out. When you go out for your qualifying lap, the track PA will talk about how you have to nail this lap to sit on the pole position.
Coming to the line, the green flag waves, the clock has started, and this qualifying run has begun. All eyes are on him as he races down to the corner. He needs a good lap here to get a good starting position for Sunday's race. Here's the important qualifying lap. This is the last one. This is when it has to happen. He makes his way around the track. If he wants to start up front, this has to be the fast lap. It's the final lap of qualifying.
They also say stuff at the start of the race and on the final lap. It gets you pumped up.
All the preparation is over. It's game time. Green flag in the air. 43 cars side by side. 2 by 2. Race off to the corner. They cross the stripe for the final time. 1 lap to go. The white flag is out. It's checkers or record. Don't hold back. The race is on the line. Who will win this NASCAR with the Cup Series event?
Another new feature that I absolutely loved was the trophy room. After you win a race in any mode, a trophy gets added to your trophy case. Tiburon took the time to model every single trophy from all 38 races and put them in the game so they can be seen in the Victory Lane celebration and the trophy room. There's even a spot for the NASCAR Winston Cup itself. One cool thing about this is that both season and career mode have their own separate trophy rooms that won't display trophies won in other modes. This lets you collect them all over again and try to win every single race in your career. Thunder 2004 is a great game, arguably the peak of EA's run as a developer of NASCAR video games. Everything was going well for the series, the games were selling well, and reviews were good. Not 10 out of 10 Game of the Year stuff, but good nonetheless. However, a major shakeup for the series was coming in NASCAR 2005, Chase for the Cup. NASCAR 2005 would overhaul the excellent career mode for the first time since it was introduced in Thunder 2002, and rename it as Fight to the Top. Each of the Thunder games dropped you directly into the Cup Series as an owner-driver, where stacking cash early on was more important than challenging for positions in order to improve your team. This time, however, you're the next big thing, the hot rookie sensation everyone has their eyes on. That is, after you beat Ryan Newman in a street race through New York City driving a Dodge Viper SRT-10. Yo, this would never happen in real life. If any NASCAR driver was caught street racing, they'd be suspended at the very least, if not worse. And if you beat a NASCAR driver in a street race, you wouldn't instantly get a contract to be a pro race car driver. The prologue for Fight to the Top is absolutely crazy. After winning the street race, you sign a contract to drive in the Featherlight Modified Series, the bottom rung of the NASCAR ladder, to start working your way up through the Modifieds, Craftsman Truck Series, Busch Series, and finally the Cup Series. This was a big change from the previous titles. Now it was possible to be competitive right from the get-go. You can win the Modified Series Championship in your first year, and if you do, teams in the higher series will come knocking on your door to give you an opportunity to move up. Prestige is the name of the game here. The better you perform on track, the more prestigious you become. The more prestigious you are, more top-tier teams will want your services. A team from a higher series will offer you a testing session in their car, or truck, and if you beat the lap time they set, you'll get a contract offer to move up. Fight to the Top also featured a sort of morality system, where you could be seen by fans as either a hero or a villain. By driving clean, fans would see you as a heroic driver and flock to your banner, while racing dirty made you a villain, which could cause you to lose fan support. Building a fan base is important in the game, as the more fans you have, the more merchandise you can sell. A new minigame was even introduced in Fight to the Top, where you have to sign autographs for a crowd of fans by tapping buttons. It's dumb, but it's kinda cool how Tiburon tried to incorporate the fan aspect of NASCAR into the game. Each contract you sign comes with payouts, your race pay, a cut of race winnings, and a cut of merchandise sales. But since you're not running your own team this time around, what can you spend all your cash on? That's where team ownership comes into play. Once you've earned enough money, you have the option to start a single car team in any of the 4 series, and you can own them all simultaneously as well, making you a NASCAR conglomerate. Thing is though, you can't possibly drive in every single event if you own multiple teams, or are driving for a team in a different series. In fact, many race days will overlap during the year, forcing you to choose which events to compete in. This is when hiring a driver comes in handy. This frees up your schedule and lets you make money off your team, minus the driver's pay of course. After buying a team in a series below me on the ladder, what I'd usually do is hire a driver and split time with them through the season, as if I was coaching that driver up. Splitting seat time with a younger driver in a lower series is very commonplace in NASCAR, with the Joe Gibbs Racing number 20 Xfinity Series team being the prime example in 2024, as that car has gone to victory lane multiple times this year while being driven by both young up-and-comers and Cup Series veterans. You can freely hire and fire drivers between races, so I'd fire them when a race I wanted to run came up and would rehire them afterwards. I don't know if anyone else played the game like that, but that's how I always did it. Also, I remember DJ Payne being the best driver you could hire, even though he's not the highest level. He just always seemed to run better than all the other guys. Like in the previous games, once you own a team, you control every aspect of it, down to your paint scheme and even merchandise prices this time. However, this is also where the career mode took a major step backwards. Remember how in the Thunder games you had to hire each crew member on your team, invest money into R&D to improve your cars, add on to your race shop by building engine dynos and other facilities? Well, all that is gone in Chase for the Cup. Instead, you just spend money on levels for each aspect of your team and cars until they're maxed out. There's no inventory management, no real money management at all other than how much can you make and spend. No building new engines, no overhauling your old chassis, no building track-specific bodies. Even stat tracking, which was awesome in all 3 Thunder games, takes a serious step back. There's no Rookie of the Year points to follow, no weekly awards, no lap championship to keep track of, none of that stuff. The only things you can look at are your own stats, the point standings, and pole award standings. Even still, you can only look at these things if you've competed in at least one race in a series that year, otherwise you're locked out. So if you want to see what the Busch Series standings are looking like halfway through the year, you better have an offer to drive in the series because you can't see it otherwise. The stat tracking of the previous games made the career mode feel like you were competing in a living, breathing sport. That's gone here. Also, there's a big drawback to owning your own team. Once you own it, that's it. You can only drive for yourself in that series. No new contract offers will ever come your way again. You can't sell the team or anything. Once you hit the X button to buy, it's yours forever. The game even has a pop-up window that warns you about this. Why limit the player like that? Speaking of limiting the player, when starting the fight to the top mode, you must pick all your settings just like in the previous games. However, this time, once you go past that screen, those settings can never be changed. Why? You could last year, so now if you pick a difficulty that you feel is too easy or too hard and want to adjust it accordingly, you're completely fucked. Start over from the beginning if you want to change from rookie difficulty to veteran. The other big change in this year's entry was some improvement of the Grudges and Alliances system, introducing the new Intimidate feature. When you're behind another driver, instead of share drafting, you can now intimidate them. This will negatively influence their opinion of you, just like how share draft improves this trait. While intimidating a driver, there's a greater chance they'll make a mistake. They might get a little loose and slide up the track, opening up a passing opportunity. Or they could just full-on crash and possibly collect other cars, giving you a free pass towards the front. It's an interesting twist, as this is a thing in real-life motorsports. Have you ever been driving down the road and suddenly a cop pulls up behind you and follows you for what feels like an eternity? Imagine that feeling just at ridiculously high speeds. Pressuring someone from behind on track can cause drivers to make mistakes, and this was Tiburon's attempt at replicating that. Also, before you can share draft or intimidate someone, you have to wait for a meter to fill for each one, unlike last year when you could share draft at will. This also plays into the hero-villain system in career mode, as being heroic fills the share draft meter faster, while being villainous fills the intimidate meter faster. Outside of these additions though, it's the same system as before and suffers from the same flaws. Outside of the career mode and tweaks to Grudges and Alliances, the game is mostly the same. There's a new batch of lightning challenges, Speed Zone is back for better or for worse, this time rebranded as the Dodge Speed Zone. Thunder License, however, was dropped in favor of a new mode called Chase for the Cup. In this mode, you compete in the final 10 races of the 2004 Cup Series season, replicating the new playoff-style point system that was introduced that year. You can set difficulty, race length, and what your starting points position is. The harder you make it for yourself, the more skill points you earn by winning the championship. Wait a minute, what are skill points? Skill points were a new thing added this year and are rewarded by completing certain in-game feats along with how you drive on track. Leading the race, making clean passes, sharing draft, and intimidating will all net you skill points, while touching other cars, hitting the wall, or crashing will subtract points. Our problem with this system is that it's displayed on screen during the entire race, and it's really distracting. It pulls your attention away from your driving a lot, at least it does for me. Skill points are an in-game currency used to buy Thunder plates, so instead of earning them like in previous years, now you just buy them. Lastly, production cars were added to the game for some reason. During career mode, drivers will challenge you to a one-on-one race using street-legal vehicles, and beating them will unlock that car in Race Now mode. The cars vary from the aforementioned Viper SRT-10 to the Ford SVT Lightning to the Chevy Corvette. There's even an unlockable generic Daytona prototype available. This to me is dumb. I'm playing a NASCAR game, not Gran Turismo. I do remember though that you can easily farm skill points with production cars. Set up a race at Talladega using the SVT Lightning. For whatever reason, the AI just will not go full speed, allowing you to lead the race, lap the opposing cars, and easily win, netting you a ton of skill points per attempt. It's like playing big rigs. The last thing I want to touch on is the presentation, which took a serious step back with Chase for the Cup. Joe Moore and Barney Hall are gone and are replaced by Bill Weber, who was a fine pit reporter in his day but doesn't hold a candle to Joe and Barney. When at the race menu, Bill will talk about the track you're at, along with the race itself, and that's it. He doesn't talk about drivers on the grid, there's no anthem or command to start engines, no pace laps, no starting grid. All that is gone.
The lights are on here at Indianapolis Raceway Park as the NASCAR Busch Series gets ready to go short track racing here in the running of the Kroger 200, presented by Tom Ray Brewer RVs. Tonight's field includes some of NASCAR's biggest stars, along with some drivers that are here tonight looking to make a name for themselves. Prestige and reputations are on the line as we get set to go racing. Green flag action is just around the corner here from IRP.
Also, there's no cockpit view while driving. Again, why? I guess they'd have to build a new cockpit interior for the trucks and modifies and just didn't want to do that, so they axed the feature completely. The track PA announcer is also gone, and the sound design isn't nearly as good as Thunder 2004. NASCAR 2005 Chase for the Cup was the first misstep the series had taken since Thunder 2002. From 2002 to 2004, the series had been steadily getting better, sometimes by leaps, sometimes by baby steps, but it was improving nonetheless. This is a subjective thing though. If you didn't like the team management from the previous games, then this entry fixes that. The introduction of multiple NASCAR series was beyond welcome, but the removal of depth and presentation makes Chase for the Cup a lateral entry at best. But for me, it's a step backwards. Stripping those things away from Thunder was a bad move. A real BM in my opinion. And unfortunately, that's how the series would remain with the release of NASCAR 06, Total Team Control. In the mid-2000s, super teams were the NASCAR meta. Don't get me wrong, in NASCAR it's always been perceived that mo cars equals mo beta, but this practice reached its zenith around 2005. NASCAR capped teams at 4 cars apiece, causing Roush Racing to drop one of their full-time rides, while teams like Hendrick Motorsports, Joe Gibbs Racing, and Evernham Motorsports would expand during this time. Total Team Control tried to replicate this and fight to the top, by letting the player buy a real NASCAR team. In previous games, the player just started their own team, but in TTC, you can buy an actual NASCAR super team like Hendrick or Roush for almost $20 million. There's basically no point of buying a team in any other series if one of those teams is your ultimate goal. Or just enter Walmart money as your driver name and get $10 million every time you do it. But remember how the depth of the Thunder games was dropped in Chase for the Cup? Well, it's even worse here. When you buy a team like Joe Gibbs Racing, for example, all you can do is spend money to improve each car and their pit crews. That's it. You can't hire or fire teammates, sign sponsors for teammates' cars, or anything. The only control you have over your team is your own driver's sponsors and paint schemes. For a game advertising that you'll have total team control, it sure doesn't give you any control. There's almost no point of buying a team in the game. It's more fun to just accept contracts and drive for real teams. It's not like you can do much when you actually own a team anyway. If you really want to drive a custom car in career mode, just buy the cheapest team, buy all the upgrades, and be done with it. This was especially disappointing if you legitimately saved up the huge pile of cash needed to buy the higher end teams. The other big gimmick of this year's entry is your ability to work with your teammates out on track using the right stick. I suppose this is where the whole total team control comes in. After selecting one of your teammates with the right stick, you can then ask them to do one of 4 simple tasks. Follow you, draft with you, block other cars, and swap. Whoa, what, swap? Yeah, you can magically start driving your teammate's car if you want, letting the AI take over for your car. Firstly, the system barely works. Half the time when you ask a teammate to do something, they just don't, while your crew chief tells you they can't do that right now. And even when your crew chief confirms your teammate will follow orders, I don't think I've ever actually seen them do what I asked of them. The most useful thing you can do is just swap to your teammate's car and do whatever you were trying to ask them to do yourself. Or you can just cheese the crap out of the game by taking control of your teammates' cars and have them do your dirty work for you like an on-track mercenary. Need a caution to pit? Just torpedo your teammate into someone to bring out the yellow. Someone dogging you from behind? Use your teammate to wreck them. In a close points battle with one of your teammates? Just take control of their car and sabotage them. This is a really dumb gimmick. I don't know how this got past the concept stage. It doesn't work, but can totally break the game at the same time. It's also worth noting that a headset can be used in lieu of the right stick, sort of replicating a driver communicating with their team over the radio. A good idea, but in my experience, it barely worked. I even bought a headset when I picked up the game on launch day to try it out. Other than these two changes, it's basically the same game as Chase for the Cup, for better or for worse. The career mode is exactly the same outside of being able to buy a real team. Chase for the Cup mode is back, skill points are back, but there's way less special paint schemes in the game this time around. A fresh round of lightning challenges along with the same speed zone challenges we've been doing since Thunder 2004. Oh, excuse me, these modes are now called Dodge Challenges and Dodge Speed Zone. Did Chrysler really think that slapping their name on a mode in a video game would boost sales? To be fair, the Speed Zone name change happened in Chase for the Cup. I mean, there's really not much else to say. Everything took a step back this year. Look at Jeff Gordon on the main menu. He looks so disappointed, which is how I felt when I played this game in 2005. In the span of only 2 years, the series had gone from the best entry in the series to being mediocre at best. Don't get me wrong, NASCAR 06 is still better than NASCAR 2001 or the games for the PS1 and N64 in the 90s, but that's not saying much. But how did this happen? Why such a steep decline so quick? I actually think I have the answer. Take a good look right there. That's right, EA bought the exclusive NASCAR license to make video games based on the sport. The same thing they did with the NFL license a year prior. This move killed off both the Papyrus NASCAR Racing series on PC and Infogrames NASCAR Heat series, both of which were worthy adversaries to the Thunder series. The second EA didn't have to compete in the NASCAR space anymore, it's like they immediately stopped trying. At least the fall off with Madden was gradual, but it feels like EA and Tiburon started phoning it in on the NASCAR side before the ink on the contract even had time to dry. The next game in the series, NASCAR 07, was nearly a one-to-one copy of NASCAR 06. Well, actually, Thunder plates are now called Chase plates. Cool, that's some fine work. The only other thing that really changed was that each driver has a rating for each track type, but I swear this does nothing at all. Or I just may have never played the game long enough to notice. I remember in the lead up to the game, the driver skill thing was announced and I thought it could be really cool. Like, hey, this driver is good at saving fuel, or maybe they're easier on the tires than other drivers. Maybe this driver is more aggressive than others, stuff like that. Something that could make each individual driver feel different. But instead we just got track types with some arbitrary letter grades next to them. One thing that's really noticeable about the game is the amount of in-game advertising. I already mentioned that 2 game modes are sponsored by Dodge, but at the race menu there's the Dodge logo staring at you. When you're going out for your qualifying run, there's the Dodge logo staring at you. The team communicator now has the Nextel logo on it, the now dead telecom company that was the title sponsor of the Cup Series at the time. And now after completing certain tasks, you unlock a Allstate Good Hands item. What's the point of all this? Now you might be saying, but Comet, the cars have advertisements all over them. What's the problem with ads in the game? The difference here is that the cars in real life have sponsors on them. I never booted up a Dynasty Warriors game on PS2 with the Chevrolet Bowtie chilling out in the corner. Capcom vs SNK 2 didn't have AT&T sponsoring the life bars. The in-game advertising is so in your face and shows exactly what EA's plans for the series was. Milk it for as much money as possible instead of make a good game. Last thing we'll look at is the pre-race presentation. 2003 and 2004 had the cool MRN radio intros, while 2005 and 2006 had Bill Weber. So let's see what they did this time around. Wow, what a perfect visual and audio representation of the downfall of the series. Let's compare.
We're live from the North Carolina Speedway, otherwise known as the Rock side of today's NASCAR race, the Pop Secret 400, right here on MRN. Drivers say this place can be one difficult track to master.
Well, this track is deceiving to drivers who are new here. It's wide and fast in most places, but in the corners, they'll have to slow up more than they expect. Otherwise, the wall will sneak up and bite them on the exit, especially in turn 2.
2002 was supposedly an off-season for Jeff Gordon, with 3 wins and a 4th-place points finish.
You know, that just goes to show you what's expected out of this team. With 3 wins and 19 top 10s, there are a lot of teams that would not mind having Gordon's off year.
Jeff Green might not be a household name, but he's had a lot of success recently in stock cars.
Well, you know, there's no doubt. He won the Busch Series championship in 2000 by over 600 points, and he's finished runner-up in that series to a couple of talented guys with the names of Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Kevin Harvick.
Gentlemen, start your engine.
Sports is at the Darlington Raceway in South Carolina for the Mountain Dew Southern 500. This is more than just another race at a famous place. Some of the biggest names in NASCAR history have won this time-honored event, and many have not. 2 races remain on the road to the Nextel Cup Championship, and the next 500 miles may be the most demanding. Every position and each point even more valuable, and a win in the Southern 500 is priceless.
NASCAR 07 was the end of the series for me. The games were getting worse, and my personal interest in the sport was waning for the first time since I was a child. In 2006, I was 19 years old and turning 20 in the fall. I was a year out of high school and was working my first quote-unquote real job, coincidentally enough after leaving the NASCAR-themed arcade and go-kart park I worked at in high school. In November that year, I bought myself a birthday present, the Xbox 360, the first video game console I ever bought with my own money. I had moved on, and instead of a new NASCAR game every year, I was playing games like Mass Effect, Batman Arkham Asylum, XCOM Enemy Unknown, Call of Duty 4, Guitar Hero, Bioshock, Dead Space, and Bayonetta. I was still a fan of racing though. I never stopped loving motorsports. From a gaming perspective though, NASCAR fell by the wayside, and Formula 1 took its place. In 2010, Codemasters, developers of several different racing game series including Colin McRae Rally, Toka Race Driver, and IndyCar series, would release Formula 1 2010 on Xbox 360, and I was immediately hooked. Not every game in this series was great, but by the late 2010s the series entered its golden age, with F1's 2017, 18, and 19 all being stellar games. Take your pick of any of these 3 games and you're in for a good time. The F1 games are the closest approximation to NASCAR Thunder we have today. You have the ability to switch teams between seasons, earn resources in practice sessions and the race in order to develop your car over the course of the season, rule changes in between seasons forcing you to spend resources on adapting upgrades for the next year, classic cars, and in some entries working your way up from Formula 2 into Formula 1. In the 2020 version of the game, My Team was introduced, making you an owner-driver of your own team that you have to manage, just like the Thunder games. They would also eventually introduce a radio system where you could use a headset to talk to your engineer, the same thing that NASCAR Thunder had tried to do with Total Team Control in 07. Unfortunately though, it seems that this series is doomed to repeat history, as each game since 2020 has been more or less the same, with minimal improvements each year. It just so happens that EA bought Codemasters that same year, making them the publisher of the current F1 games. Once again, history repeats itself. Not long after NASCAR 07, it was the end for EA when it came to NASCAR video games, with NASCAR 09 being the last game in the EA Sports series. After killing off their competition, EA would kill their own game series after only 3 more years. A dedicated NASCAR video game wouldn't release again until NASCAR 2011 The Game, developed by British video game studio Technics, was famously known for the absolute shitfest Ride to Hell Retribution. Eventually, the NASCAR license would find its way to a company called Duesenberry Martin Racing, founded by Thomas Duesenberry and Ed Martin, both of which worked on the NASCAR Heat and EA NASCAR games respectively, and would bring back the NASCAR Heat name for their new licensed video games. This would ultimately culminate in NASCAR 21 Ignition, one of the worst NASCAR games of all time. A game so bad that its developer, Motorsport Games, completely abandoned it and released a paid update for NASCAR Heat 5 to bring it up to date with the 2022 season. In 2023. Thankfully though, the cries of the fans for a return to greatness have not gone unnoticed. Following the release of NASCAR 21, NASCAR themselves are able to legally break their contract with Motorsport Games, or 704 Games, or Duesenberry Martin Racing, or whoever the fuck owned the license. Seriously, I find the chain of possession here hard to follow. NASCAR almost immediately began working on an all-new game with iRacing, one of the most played online racing services in the world. Scheduled for release in the fall of 2025, let's hope that NASCAR 25 can be a return to form and at least somewhat replicate the glory days of the PlayStation 2. Those who played the NASCAR video games on PlayStation 2 remember them fondly, some of which are actual NASCAR drivers today, most notably Ross Chastain. After an insane move at Martinsville in 2022 to get him into the Championship 4, Chastain credited NASCAR 2005.
Played a lot of NASCAR 2005 on the GameCube with Chad growing up, and you could get away with it, and I never knew if it would actually work. And I did that when I was 8 years old, and I grabbed 5th gear. I asked off of 2 on the last lap if we needed it, and we did. I couldn't tell who was leading, and I just made the choice. I grabbed 5th gear down the back and full committed. Once I got against the wall, I basically let go of the wheel. Just hoped I didn't catch the turn 4 access gate or something crazy, but I was willing to do it.
As always, thank you for watching. I'm RedCometXIII, and I'll see you next time. There's even an unlockable.
The fans really seem to enjoy that. You made it look easy.